Welcome to Exposed and Broken YouTube channel. We uncover the secrets of love, betrayal, and the choices that change everything.
Cassie's thumb hovered over the send button, her heart thumping like a jackhammer in her chest. The dashboard clock glowed 2:13 a.m., casting a ghostly blue light over the Tolstoy-length email she'd just finished. Outside, the gas station's neon sign flickered, painting the world in sickly green and pink. It was the kind of night when the world felt suspended, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to make a move. She stared at her phone, rereading the subject line. For Samantha, the truth about Derek. Her finger trembled, not from fear, but from the electric thrill of what she was about to do. She could almost hear Derek's voice in her head, that smug, syrupy tone he used when he thought he was being clever. Cass, you're overreacting. You always do. Not tonight, Derek. Tonight, I'm the one with the last word. Cassie's mind drifted back to the beginning, to the first time she'd met Derek. It was at a friend's barbecue, the kind where everyone brings cheap beer and someone inevitably sets something on fire. Derek had arrived late, swaggering in with a six-pack of craft IPA and a grin that could melt steel. He was magnetic, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Cassie remembered the way he'd looked at her, eyes sparkling with mischief, as if he already knew every secret she'd ever tried to hide. He'd made her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in months. She'd just gotten out of a long, dull relationship with a man who thought romance meant splitting the bill at Applebee's. Derek was different. He was bold, spontaneous, and just a little bit dangerous. He made her feel alive. They started dating, and for a while, it was everything she'd ever wanted. Late-night drives with the windows down, music blaring, Derek's hand resting on her thigh. He'd talk about his dreams. Big, wild dreams that made her believe anything was possible. He made her feel like she was part of something important, something electric. But even in those early days, there were signs. Little things, like the way he always had to be the center of attention, or how he'd brush off her concerns with a laugh and a kiss. He was charming, yes, but there was a sharpness beneath the surface, a hunger that never seemed satisfied. The truck was the first real test. Cassie had just gotten a promotion at work, and she wanted to celebrate. Derek, ever the opportunist, suggested they upgrade his old, beat-up pickup. We'll get something nice, he'd said, something we can both use. Somehow, we turned into Cassie. She was the one who signed the papers, who made the down payment, who paid the insurance. Derek drove it everywhere, always with some excuse about how he needed it for work, or to help a friend move, or to pick up something special for her. He never seemed to have cash for gas, though. Cassie found herself filling the tank more often than not, watching the numbers climb while Derek scrolled through his phone, barely glancing up. She told herself it was love. That's what you do for someone you care about, right? You help them out. You make sacrifices. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the truck. Derek had a way of making everything about him. If Cassie had a bad day, he'd one-up her with a story about how his was worse. If she got a raise, he'd complain about his boss. If she wanted to talk about her dreams, he'd steer the conversation back to his own. It was exhausting, but Cassie kept trying, kept hoping he'd see how much she cared. Then came the late nights, the unexplained absences, the texts he'd hide when she walked into the room. Cassie tried to ignore it, tried to believe his excuses. Just working late, babe. You know how it is. But the doubt gnawed at her, growing with every unanswered call, every cold shoulder. Her friends noticed. He's using you, Cass, her best friend, Lila, said one night over margaritas. You're paying for everything, and he treats you like an afterthought. Cassie laughed it off, but the word stuck with her, echoing in the back of her mind. The truth hit her like a punch to the gut one rainy Thursday. She'd borrowed Derek's phone to order pizza. His was closer, he said, and she didn't think twice. But as she unlocked the screen, a message popped up. Can't wait to see you tonight. Handsome. XOXO. Cassie's stomach dropped. She scrolled through the messages, her hands shaking. There it was, in black and white. Derek was cheating on her. He didn't even try to deny it. It just happened, Cass, he said, shrugging as if he'd spilled a drink, not shattered her heart. We weren't working out anyway. You're too intense. He left her for the other woman, Samantha. Cassie saw the photos online a few months later. Derek and Samantha, all smiles, posing in front of a courthouse with matching rings. Derek looked smug, Samantha radiant. Cassie felt like she'd been punched all over again. She tried to move on. She really did. But Derek wouldn't let her. The emails started a few weeks after the wedding. At first, they were casual, hey, how have you been? But they quickly turned explicit. Derek reminisced about their nights together, sent her photos she never wanted to see again, insisted that marriage was just a piece of paper. Cassie ignored him at first. She deleted the emails, blocked his address, tried to forget. But Derek was relentless. His ego couldn't handle rejection. He found new ways to contact her, new accounts, new numbers. Each message was more desperate, more graphic, more pathetic. For years, Cassie endured it. She told herself it didn't matter, that she was stronger than him. But every message was a reminder of how he'd used her, how he'd made her feel small. Tonight, that ended. Cassie's finger hovered over the button. She'd spent hours crafting her reply, a masterpiece of righteous fury, every word a scalpel. She'd attached every message, every photo, every disgusting detail. She'd addressed it to Samantha with a simple note. You deserve to know the truth. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years lift from her shoulders. The gas station lights flickered, the world holding its breath. Cassie hit send. And just like that, the night exploded into possibility. Cassie sat in the driver's seat, staring at her phone as if it might burst into flames. The email was gone, launched into cyberspace, carrying with it every ounce of pain, humiliation, and righteous fury she'd bottled up for years. She half expected the world to shift, for the gas station lights to flicker out, for thunder to roll across the sky. But the night remained stubbornly ordinary. A moth battered itself against the windshield. Somewhere, a car door slammed. Life, it seemed, went on. She let out a long, shaky breath and pressed her forehead to the steering wheel. The leather was cool against her skin, grounding her. She felt hollow and electric all at once, as if she just stepped off a roller coaster and wasn't sure whether to laugh or throw up. Her phone buzzed. For a split second, her heart leapt. Samantha? Derek? But it was just Lila, her best friend, the one person who'd stuck by her through every Derek-induced disaster. You okay? The text read, You said you were going to do it tonight. Did you chicken out? Cassie smiled despite herself. Lila had a knack for knowing exactly when to check in, as if she had a sixth sense for Cassie's emotional turbulence. I did it, Cassie typed back. It's done. I sent everything. Even the. A moment later, Lila's reply popped up. Holy shit. You're my hero. Want me to bring ice cream? Or tequila? Or both? Cassie hesitated, glancing at the clock. It was almost 3 a.m, but sleep felt impossible. Her nerves were still jangling, her mind replaying the last few years in a dizzying montage. Derek's smirk, Samantha's perfect Instagram smile, the endless parade of gas receipts and empty promises. Both, she wrote, and maybe a baseball bat, just in case Derek shows up. On my way, Lila replied. Don't go anywhere. And don't you dare start regretting this. Cassie set her phone aside and leaned back, closing her eyes. She let the memories wash over her, not fighting them for once. She remembered the first time Derek had made her feel special. How he'd shown up at her office with flowers, how he'd whispered that she was different from all the others. She'd believed him. God, she'd wanted to believe him. But the truth was, Derek had always been a collector. He gathered admirers like trophies, basking in their attention, feeding off their devotion. Cassie had just been another notch on his belt, another story to tell. She wondered if Samantha knew that yet. She wondered if she ever would. A car pulled into the gas station, headlights sweeping across the lot. Cassie tensed, but it was just a tired-looking man in a delivery uniform, yawning as he filled his tank. She watched him for a moment, envying his obliviousness. To him, this was just another night. For Cassie, it was the end of an era. Her phone buzzed again. This time, It was an email notification. Her stomach twisted. She opened it with trembling hands. It was from Samantha. The message was short, brutally short. Thank you. Cassie stared at the screen, her mind racing. Was that gratitude? Sarcasm? Fury? She read it again, searching for clues, but there was nothing else. Just those two words, hanging in the air like a challenge. She wanted to feel triumphant, but instead she felt empty. Was this what revenge tasted like? She'd imagined fireworks, a sense of closure, maybe even a little joy. But all she felt was tired. A knock on her window made her jump. She looked up to see Lila grinning at her, a pint of Ben and Jerry's in one hand and a bottle of tequila in the other. Open up, Avenger, Lila called, her breath fogging the glass. We've got celebrating to do. Cassie unlocked the door, and Lila slid into the passenger seat, kicking off her shoes and tucking her feet under her. She handed Cassie the ice cream and unscrewed the tequila, taking a swig before passing it over. So, Lila asked, eyes wide with anticipation, how do you feel? Like a badass? Like a goddess of vengeance? Cassie laughed, the sound shaky but real. I feel weird. Relieved, I guess. But also kind of sad. Lila nodded, her expression softening. That's normal. You spent years letting that asshole take up space in your head. It's going to feel empty for a while. But trust me, that's a good thing. It means you're finally free. Cassie took a bite of ice cream, the cold sweetness grounding her. She looked at Lila, her oldest friend, the one who'd seen her at her best and her absolute worst. Do you think she'll leave him? Cassie asked quietly. Lila shrugged. Maybe. Maybe not. But that's not your problem anymore. You did what you had to do. You told the truth. The rest is up to her. They sat in silence for a while, passing the tequila back and forth, watching the world slowly wake up around them. The sky began to lighten, the first hints of dawn creeping over the horizon. Cassie felt something shift inside her, a loosening, a letting go. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for Derek to call, or apologize, or explain. She wasn't waiting for anything. She was free. And as the sun rose over the city, painting the world in gold and pink, Cassie knew one thing for sure. She would never let anyone use her as a pit stop on their way to someone else's happy ending again. Cassie woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window, slicing across the tangled sheets and the empty tequila bottle on her nightstand. Her head throbbed. Her mouth tasted like regret and cookie dough, and her phone was buzzing insistently somewhere under a pile of laundry. For a moment, she lay still, letting the warmth of the morning soak into her bones. She felt lighter, as if some invisible weight had finally been lifted. Then the memories came rushing back. The gas station, the email, Samantha's two-word reply. Lila's laughter echoing in the car. Cassie groaned, rolling over and burying her face in her pillow. Had she really done it? Had she really sent every sordid detail to the woman who'd replaced her? She fished her phone out from under a sweatshirt and squinted at the screen. No new messages from Derek. No angry calls. No police at her door. Just a string of texts from Lila, each more enthusiastic than the last. You're a legend. I'm so proud of you. Brunch? My treat. You need carbs and coffee stat. Cassie smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. Lila was right. She needed carbs, coffee, and maybe a little bit of normalcy. She texted back, give me an hour. I need to shower and find my dignity. She dragged herself out of bed, wincing as her feet hit the cold floor. In the bathroom mirror, she looked like a woman who'd just survived a hurricane. Hair wild, eyes puffy. But there was a spark there, something fierce and unbroken. She grinned at her reflection, feeling a surge of pride. She'd done it. She'd stood up for herself, finally. As she showered, Cassie let her mind wander. She thought about Derek, how he'd always managed to twist every situation to his advantage, how he'd made her feel like she was the problem, the one who needed to change. She thought about Samantha, too, and wondered what was happening in that perfect little house with the white picket fence and the matching monogram towels. Was Samantha confronting Derek right now? Was he spinning another web of lies? Or was he finally out of excuses? Cassie hoped, for Samantha's sake, that she'd see through him. But she also knew it wasn't her responsibility anymore. She'd done what she could. The rest was out of her hands. By the time she arrived at the cafe, Lila was already there, waving from a corner booth with 2 giant mugs of coffee and a stack of pancakes that looked like they could feed a small army. "Over here, Avenger," Lila called, grinning as Cassie slid into the booth. "You look alive." "Barely." Cassie laughed, taking a grateful sip of coffee. "I feel like I got hit by a truck. But, in a good way." Lila leaned in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "So, any fallout yet? Angry emails? Dramatic confrontations?" Cassie shook her head. "Just a thank you from Samantha. That's it. I keep waiting for Derek to show up at my door. But nothing." Lila snorted. He's probably too busy trying to talk his way out of it. Or maybe he finally realized he can't charm his way out of everything. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation filling the air. Cassie felt the tension in her shoulders slowly melt away. For the first time in ages, she wasn't looking over her shoulder, waiting for the next disaster. She was just here. "So," Lila said, nudging her with an elbow, "what's next? You've got a clean slate. No more Derek, no more drama. What are you going to do with all that freedom?" Cassie considered the question, turning it over in her mind. She'd spent so long reacting to Derek, his moods, his demands, his betrayals, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to make choices for herself. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe I'll take a trip. Or finally sign up for that pottery class I keep talking about. Or just sleep for a week." Lila grinned. "Whatever you do, make it about you. You deserve it." Cassie smiled, feeling a flicker of excitement. The world suddenly seemed full of possibilities, big and small, wild and mundane. She could do anything. She could be anyone. As they finished breakfast, Cassie's phone buzzed again. This time, it was an email from Derek. Her heart skipped a beat. She stared at the screen, her hands suddenly clammy. Lila noticed, her expression turning serious. "Do you want me to read it?" Lila offered. Cassie shook her head. "No, I need to do this." She opened the email, bracing herself for anger, for blame, for the full force of Derek's wounded ego. But the message was short. Pathetic, even. "Why would you do this to me? I thought we were friends. You've ruined everything." Cassie read it twice, then laughed. A sharp, bright sound that turned a few heads in the cafe. Lila raised an eyebrow. "He really doesn't get it, does he?" Cassie said, shaking her head. "He still thinks it's about him." Lila reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Let him stew. You don't owe him anything." Cassie nodded, feeling a sense of closure settle over her. She deleted the email without replying, savoring the finality of it. As she walked out of the cafe, sunlight warming her face, Cassie felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The world was wide open, and for the first time in years, she was free to choose her own direction. She smiled, stepping into the day, ready to see where her new beginning would take her. Cassie spent the next few days in a strange, exhilarating limbo. She went to work, answered emails, and smiled at her coworkers' jokes, but everything felt different. Lighter, as if she'd finally shrugged off a heavy coat she'd been wearing for years. She found herself humming in the shower, lingering over her morning coffee, and even catching herself daydreaming at her desk. On Thursday, her phone buzzed with a message from Lila. "Girls' night? You, me, and the world's greasiest nachos?" Cassie grinned and replied, "Count me in. I'll bring the antacids." They met at their favorite dive bar, a place with sticky floors, neon beer signs, and a jukebox that only played songs from the last century. Cassie slid into the booth, feeling the familiar comfort of old routines. Lila was already there, sipping a margarita and waving at the bartender for another round. To freedom, Lila toasted, raising her glass. And to never letting a man with a truck ruin your life again. Cassie laughed, clinking her glass against Lila's. "I'll drink to that." They ordered nachos, mozzarella sticks, and enough fries to feed a football team. Cassie felt the tension of the past few years melting away with every bite, every shared story, every burst of laughter. For the first time in ages, she wasn't looking over her shoulder, waiting for the next disaster. She was just living. Halfway through their second round of drinks, Cassie spotted a familiar face across the bar. It was Mason, one of Derek's old friends, a guy she'd always liked, even if he'd been a little too loyal to Derek for her taste. He caught her eye and hesitated, then made his way over, hands shoved in his pockets. "Hey, Cassie," Mason said, his voice tentative. "Mind if I join you for a minute?" Lila shot Cassie a look, but Cassie nodded. "Sure, Mason. What's up?" He slid into the booth, glancing nervously at Lila before turning to Cassie. I heard about what happened. With Derek. And Samantha." Cassie's stomach tightened, but she kept her tone light. "News travels fast, huh?" Mason winced. "Yeah. Derek's been, well, he's not taking it well. He says you ruined his life." Cassie snorted. "He ruined his own life. I just sent the receipts." Lila grinned, clearly enjoying the show. Mason looked uncomfortable, but pressed on. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner, for not saying anything. Derek always made it sound like you were the problem, but I should have known better." Cassie felt a surprising wave of relief. She'd expected anger or judgment, or at least some awkwardness. But Mason's apology felt genuine, and it soothed something raw inside her. "Thanks, Mason," she said softly. "That means a lot." He nodded, looking sheepish. "If you ever need anything or just want to talk, I'm around. And I hope you're doing okay." Cassie smiled. "I am, for the first time in a long time." Mason excused himself, and Lila leaned in, eyes wide. Well, looks like you're not the only one waking up from the Derek spell." Cassie laughed, feeling a spark of mischief. "Maybe I should start a support group. Survivors of Derek. First meeting, free nachos." They dissolved into giggles, the kind that left them breathless and wiping tears from their eyes. Cassie felt lighter than she had in years, buoyed by friendship and the knowledge that she wasn't alone. As the night wore on, Cassie found herself thinking about the future, not with dread, but with curiosity. She could travel. She could take that pottery class. She could say yes to new adventures, new people, new possibilities. On the walk home, Lila looped her arm through Cassie's. "You know, I think this is just the beginning for you. You've got a whole new road ahead." Cassie looked up at the stars, feeling the truth of it settle in her chest. She didn't know where she was going, but for the first time, she was excited to find out. "Yeah," she said, her voice steady and sure. "I think you're right." And as they walked into the night, Cassie felt the world open up before her, wide, wild, and full of promise. Cassie stood in front of the community center's bulletin board, her finger tracing the faded flyer for beginner pottery. No experience necessary. She'd walked past it a dozen times, always telling herself she was too busy, too tired, too something. But tonight, with the memory of Lila's encouragement and the echo of Mason's apology still warming her heart, she tore off a tab and dialed the number before she could talk herself out of it. The woman on the other end sounded cheerful and a little frazzled. "You're in luck. We just had a last-minute cancellation. Class starts in 20 minutes, Studio B, down the hall from the gym. Just bring yourself and a willingness to get messy." Cassie grinned. "Messy I can do." She hung up, her heart fluttering with nerves and excitement. She'd spent so long living in reaction to Derek, his moods, his needs, his betrayals, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to do something just for herself. Tonight, she was reclaiming that. Studio B smelled like wet earth and possibility. The instructor, a woman with wild gray curls and hands perpetually dusted with clay, greeted Cassie with a warm smile. "Welcome. I'm Marjorie. Grab an apron and find a wheel. We're all beginners here, so don't worry about making a mess." Cassie slipped into an apron and took a seat at a wheel, her hands trembling with anticipation. Around her, a handful of other students, an older man in a Hawaiian shirt, a teenage girl with headphones, a young couple giggling nervously, were already shaping lumps of clay into wobbly bowls and lopsided mugs. Marjorie clapped her hands. "All right, everyone. The first rule of pottery: clay is forgiving. If you mess up, you just squish it and start again. Kind of like life, right?" Cassie laughed, feeling the last of her tension melt away. She pressed her hands into the cool, damp clay, letting it squish between her fingers. It was oddly soothing, grounding her in the present moment. As the wheel spun, Cassie lost herself in the rhythm. The hum of the motor, the gentle pressure of her hands, the way the clay responded to her touch. She wasn't thinking about Derek or Samantha or the chaos she'd left behind. She was just here, creating something new from a shapeless lump. Halfway through the class, Marjorie wandered over, peering at Cassie's creation. Not bad for a first try. You've got a good touch. What brings you to pottery? Cassie hesitated, then smiled. I needed a fresh start. Something that's just for me. Marjorie nodded, her eyes twinkling. That's the best reason there is. By the end of the night, Cassie's hands were caked with clay. Her hair was a mess, and her bowl looked more like a squashed donut than anything functional. But she felt lighter, freer, as if she'd shed another layer of her old life. As she left the studio, her phone buzzed. A message from Mason. Hey, a few of us are grabbing drinks at O'Malley's tomorrow. You should come. No Derek, I promise. Cassie hesitated, her thumb hovering over the screen. The old Cassie would have made an excuse, afraid of awkwardness or judgment. But the new Cassie, the one who'd survived heartbreak, sent the email, and made a lopsided bowl, felt brave. Count me in, she replied. The next evening, Cassie found herself at O'Malley's, tucked into a booth with Mason and a few other familiar faces from the Derek era. To her surprise, the conversation was easy, the laughter genuine. No one mentioned Derek. Instead, they talked about work, travel, and the best places in town for late-night tacos. At one point, Mason leaned over, his voice low. You seem different. Happier. Cassie smiled, feeling the truth of it. I am. I finally stopped letting someone else steer my life. Mason grinned. Good. You deserve it. As the night wore on, Cassie realized she was surrounded by people who saw her, not as Derek's ex, not as a victim, but as herself. She felt a surge of gratitude, a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in years. Walking home under the city's soft glow, Cassie thought about all the roads ahead. Some smooth, some bumpy, all hers to choose. She was done being a passenger in her own life. Tomorrow, she'd go back to the studio and try again. Maybe her bowl would be a little less lopsided. Maybe not. But it would be hers, shaped by her own hands, her own choices. And that, Cassie thought, was more than enough. Cassie's second pottery class was even messier than the first. She arrived early, eager to get her hands back in the clay, and found Marjorie already humming to herself, arranging finished pieces on a shelf. Cassie's first bowl, her squashed donut, had survived the kiln, now a lumpy, off-white artifact with her initials carved crookedly into the base. Not bad, Cassie, Marjorie said, holding it up to the light. You know, some people pay good money for a rustic charm. Cassie laughed, feeling a warm pride she hadn't expected. I'll start my own line. Perfectly Imperfect by Cassie. As the other students trickled in, Cassie settled at her wheel, rolling a fresh lump of clay between her palms. She was just starting to find her rhythm when the door creaked open and a familiar voice floated in. Is this the pottery class? I'm new. Cassie's hands froze. She looked up, heart thudding. There, standing awkwardly in the doorway, was Samantha. For a moment, the room seemed to shrink. Cassie's mind raced. Had Samantha come here on purpose? Was this a coincidence or some kind of cosmic joke? Samantha's eyes flicked around the room, landing on Cassie. Her expression was unreadable. Marjorie, oblivious to the tension, beamed. Welcome. Grab an apron, find a seat anywhere. Samantha hesitated, then chose a will 2 spots down from Cassie. She didn't look over, but Cassie could feel the weight of her presence, the unspoken history crackling in the air. Cassie's heart pounded as she tried to focus on her clay. She could feel her classmates' curiosity, 2 women, both new, both tense. She wondered if anyone else could sense the storm brewing beneath the surface. Halfway through class, Marjorie called for a break. Cassie slipped outside, needing air. She leaned against the cool brick wall, trying to steady her breathing. The door opened behind her and Samantha stepped out, arms folded. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched, heavy and awkward. Finally, Samantha broke it. I didn't come here to... I didn't know you'd be here. Cassie nodded, her voice quiet. It's okay. It's a good class. Samantha looked down at her hands, picking at her cuticles. I got your email. All of it. I guess I should say thank you. Or maybe I should be mad. I don't know. Cassie swallowed. You deserve to know the truth. I wish someone had told me. Samantha's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears away. He's gone. Packed up and left. I guess I should have seen it coming. Cassie felt a pang of sympathy, unexpected and sharp. He fooled both of us. That's what he does. Samantha let out a shaky laugh. I thought I was special. I thought he'd change for me. Cassie smiled sadly. So did I. They stood in silence, the city's sounds humming around them. For the first time, Cassie saw Samantha not as a rival, but as another casualty of Derek's endless hunger for attention. Samantha straightened, wiping her eyes. I'm tired of feeling stupid. I want to do something for myself. That's why I'm here. Cassie nodded, a sense of kinship blooming between them. Me too. Turns out, Clay is a lot more forgiving than people. Samantha managed a small smile. Maybe we'll both get better at it. They went back inside, settling at their wheels. The tension had eased, replaced by something like understanding. Cassie found her hands moving more confidently, shaping the clay into a bowl that was almost round. At the end of class, Marjorie clapped her hands. Great work, everyone. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Cassie glanced at Samantha, who gave her a tentative nod. Cassie smiled back, feeling a strange sense of closure. As she walked home, Cassie realized she wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't even sad. She was just free. Free to make mistakes, to start over, to shape her own life with her own hands. And as the city lights flickered on, Cassie felt a quiet joy settle in her chest. She was glazed and unfazed, ready for whatever came next. Cassie's phone buzzed as she was leaving work on Friday. The sky streaked with the last gold of sunset. It was a message from Samantha. Hey, do you want to grab coffee before class tomorrow? I could use a friendly face and maybe some advice on how not to make a clay pancake again. Cassie smiled, surprised by how much she wanted to say yes. She typed back, absolutely. I know a place with the best cinnamon rolls in town. 9:30? Perfect, Samantha replied. See you then. The next morning, Cassie arrived at the cafe early, the air fragrant with coffee and sugar. She snagged a window seat and watched the city wake up, feeling a flutter of nerves. She'd never imagined she'd be meeting Samantha like this. Two women, both burned by the same man, now sharing cinnamon rolls and stories. Samantha arrived, her hair pulled back, eyes tired but determined. She slid into the seat across from Cassie and offered a tentative smile. Thanks for meeting me. I almost bailed, but I figured I could use a friend who gets it. Cassie grinned. Trust me, I get it. And I promise, no Derek talk unless you want to. Samantha laughed, the tension easing. Deal. So what's your secret? Your bowl last week actually looked like a bowl. Cassie shrugged, breaking off a piece of cinnamon roll. Lower your expectations. And don't be afraid to get messy. They talked about pottery, work, and the weirdness of starting over. Cassie found herself opening up about her dreams, traveling, maybe starting her own business, finally learning to cook something more complicated than pasta. Samantha shared her own hopes, her voice growing stronger with each word. I always thought I needed someone to take care of me, Samantha admitted. But now I think I just need to take care of myself for a while. Cassie nodded, feeling a surge of pride for both of them. Here's to new beginnings. They clinked coffee mugs, laughter bubbling between them. At class, Marjorie announced a new project, a group exhibition for beginners, open to the public. It's a chance to show off your progress and maybe sell a piece or two. Don't be shy. Sign up if you're interested. Cassie's heart skipped. The idea of putting her work on display, her lopsided bowls, her imperfect mugs, was terrifying. But as she glanced at Samantha, who was already scribbling her name on the sign-up sheet, Cassie felt a spark of courage. She added her name, her handwriting bold and certain. After class, Samantha nudged her. We should celebrate. Drinks? Or maybe just more cinnamon rolls? Cassie laughed. Let's do both. We're artists now, right? We have to live a little. They walked out into the afternoon sun, arms linked, the city buzzing around them. Cassie felt a sense of possibility she hadn't known in years. She was building something new. Friendships, skills, a life that was hers alone. That night, as she arranged her pottery on her kitchen table, Cassie realized she was proud of every crooked, wobbly piece. Each one was proof that she'd survived, that she was growing, that she was brave enough to try. She texted Lila a photo of her latest bowl, captioned, "Exhibit A, not a donut." Lila replied instantly, "You're a masterpiece, Cass. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Cassie smiled, her heart full. She was fired up, ready for whatever came next. And for the first time, she knew she could handle it one imperfect, beautiful step at a time. The community center buzzed with nervous energy on the night of the exhibition. Cassie arrived early, her arms full of carefully wrapped pottery. Her best bowl, a mug with a handle that almost made sense, and a small, lopsided vase she glazed in a wild swirl of blue and green. She set them on her assigned table, arranging them with trembling hands. Samantha arrived moments later, carrying a tray of cheerful, chunky mugs. "I almost didn't come," she whispered, eyes wide. "I kept thinking, what if nobody likes my stuff?" Cassie grinned, her own nerves easing. "Then we'll buy each other's. Problem solved." They laughed, the sound bright and real. Marjorie bustled over, her arms full of name tags and encouragement. "You two are naturals. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about sharing your story." As the doors opened, a trickle of visitors became a steady stream. Cassie's heart pounded as strangers picked up her pieces, turning them over, asking questions. She found herself talking about her process, her mistakes, and the joy of starting over. Each conversation chipped away at her fear. Lila arrived with a flourish, dragging Mason and a few other friends behind her. "Look at you, Miss Artist." Lila crowed, snapping photos. "I want that blue bowl. It's got Cassie written all over it." Mason grinned, picking up the mug. "I'll take this one. It's got character, just like you." Cassie blushed, warmth flooding her cheeks. She realized she was surrounded by people who saw her, who celebrated her, flaws and all. Across the room, Samantha was deep in conversation with a couple admiring her mugs. She caught Cassie's eye and gave a thumbs up, her face glowing with pride. As the evening wore on, Cassie's table emptied, friends and strangers alike buying her pieces, leaving kind words and encouragement. She felt a giddy sense of accomplishment, a validation she hadn't known she needed. Near the end of the night, Marjorie gathered everyone for a toast. To new beginnings, to courage, and to the beauty of imperfection. Glasses clinked, laughter rang out, and Cassie felt tears prick her eyes. She thought of the woman she'd been, afraid, uncertain, always waiting for someone else's approval. That woman was gone, replaced by someone braver, someone who took up space and shared her story. After the exhibition, Cassie and Samantha walked out into the cool night, arms full of flowers and leftover pottery. "I can't believe we did it," Samantha said, her voice soft with wonder. Cassie smiled, feeling the truth of it settled deep in her bones. "Me neither. But I'm glad we did. I'm glad I met you." Samantha squeezed her hand. "Me too. Here's to more messy, beautiful things." Cassie looked up at the stars, her heart full. She was on display, not just her art, but her courage, her growth, her hope. And she was proud of every imperfect, glorious piece of it. As she walked home, Cassie knew this was just the beginning. The world was wide open, and she was finally ready to claim it. The week after the exhibition, Cassie felt like she was floating. Her phone was full of photos from the show, messages from friends, and even a few inquiries from people who wanted to buy more of her pottery. She'd started sketching new designs, her kitchen table now a cheerful mess of clay, glazes, and half-finished ideas. One rainy afternoon, as she was shaping a new bowl, her phone buzzed with a notification that made her breath catch. An email from Derek. She stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She hadn't heard from him since the fallout with Samantha. For a moment, She considered deleting it unread, but curiosity and a flicker of old anger got the better of her. She opened the message. Cassie, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I've lost everything. Samantha's gone, my friends won't talk to me, and I'm trying to figure out where I went wrong. I know I hurt you. I know I was selfish. I'm not asking for forgiveness, but I need to talk to someone who knew me before all this. Please, just one coffee. I need closure. Derek. Cassie stared at the words, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. Part of her wanted to laugh at the irony. Derek, the man who'd never cared about closure, now begging for it. Another part of her felt a pang of pity. He sounded lost, broken in a way she'd never seen. She called Lila, needing to hear a friendly voice. You'll never guess who just emailed me, she said, her voice tight. Lila groaned. Let me guess. The ghost of Narcissus passed. Cassie snorted. He wants to meet. Says he needs closure. There was a pause. What do you want to do? Lila asked gently. Cassie looked around her apartment at the evidence of her new life. Her art, her friends, her freedom. She realized she didn't feel fear or longing or even anger. She just felt done. I think I want to hear him out, Cassie said slowly. Not for him. For me. I want to see if I can look him in the eye and not feel small anymore. Lila was quiet for a moment, then said, If you do this, do it on your terms. You're not the same woman he left behind. Cassie smiled, her resolve hardening. I know. I'm not. They met at a quiet cafe, the kind with mismatched chairs and rain tapping softly at the windows. Derek looked older, thinner, his confidence replaced by a nervous energy. He stood when she walked in, but Cassie didn't offer a hug. She sat calm and steady. He started to speak, but Cassie held up a hand. Before you say anything, I want you to know I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to make you feel better. I'm here because I need to see for myself that I'm free of you. Derek's eyes widened, but he nodded. I get it. I want to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was a mess. I hurt you and Samantha and probably everyone else who ever cared about me. Cassie listened, her heart steady. She saw him clearly now, not as the charming man who'd swept her off her feet, but as a flawed, lost person searching for answers she couldn't give. When he finished, Cassie stood. I hope you find what you're looking for, Derek. But I'm not your closure. I'm my own. She left him there, the rain blurring the world outside, and stepped into the street with her head high. As she walked home, Cassie felt lighter than ever. The past no longer had a hold on her. She was free, truly, finally free. And as she opened her door to the scent of clay and possibility, Cassie knew that her story was just beginning. Cassie woke to sunlight streaming through her window, the city humming with the promise of spring. She stretched, feeling the delicious ache in her arms from hours spent at the pottery wheel the night before. Her kitchen table was a riot of color, bowls, mugs, and vases in every stage of completion, each one a testament to her persistence and growth. Her phone buzzed with a new email. She expected another order for a mug or a message from Lila, but the subject line made her blink, Community Arts Festival invitation. She opened it, her heart thumping. Dear Cassie, we saw your work at the Community Center exhibition and were so impressed by your creativity and spirit. We'd love to invite you to be a featured artist at this year's Community Arts Festival. Please let us know if you're interested. We think your story and your art would inspire others. Best, the festival team. Cassie read the email twice, then a third time, her hands shaking with excitement. She thought of the woman she'd been just months ago, afraid, uncertain, always waiting for someone else's approval. Now she was being invited to share her story, her art, her journey. She called Lila, barely able to contain her joy. You're not going to believe this, she said, her voice bubbling with laughter. They want me to be a featured artist at the festival. Lila squealed, so loudly Cassie had to hold the phone away from her ear. Cassie, this is huge. You have to do it. You have to tell your story. Cassie grinned, her heart soaring. I want to. I really, really want to. She spent the next few weeks preparing, glazing new pieces, writing a short artist statement, and even practicing what she'd say if someone asked about her journey. Samantha and Mason offered to help set up her booth, and Lila promised to bring a cheering section. The day of the festival dawned bright and clear. Cassie's booth was tucked between a painter with wild, abstract canvases and a jewelry maker whose laughter rang out over the crowd. She arranged her pottery with care, each piece a chapter of her story. People stopped to admire her work, to ask about her process, to share their own stories of starting over. Cassie found herself telling the truth, not just about clay and glaze, but about heartbreak, healing, and the power of choosing yourself. At one point, a young woman lingered at her table, turning a mug over in her hands. "I love this," she said softly. "It's not perfect, but it feels real. Like it's been through something and come out stronger." Cassie smiled, her eyes shining. "That's exactly what I was going for." As the sun set and the festival lights twinkled on, Cassie looked around at the crowd. Her friends, her new community, and even a few strangers who'd become part of her story. She felt a deep, quiet pride. She had survived. She had grown. She had created something beautiful from the mess. And as she packed up her booth, Cassie knew that this was only the beginning. There would be more heartbreaks, more challenges, more lopsided bowls, and unexpected twists. But she was ready for all of it. She was, at last, the artist of her own life. Months passed, and the seasons shifted. Cassie's apartment filled with sunlight and the gentle clutter of a life well lived. Half-finished sketches, new glazes drying on the windowsill, and a growing collection of thank you notes from people who'd bought her pottery and found a piece of themselves in her work. The Community Arts Festival had been a turning point. Cassie's story, her honesty, her laughter, her willingness to share the messy parts, had resonated with more people than she could have imagined. Orders trickled in from strangers who'd heard about her perfectly imperfect bowls. She started teaching a beginner's pottery class at the community center, guiding nervous hands and encouraging hesitant smiles. Samantha became a true friend, their bond forged in the fire of shared experience and mutual respect. They met for coffee, swapped glazes, and sometimes just sat in comfortable silence, grateful for the peace they'd found. Mason, too, became a regular presence, his easy humor and quiet support a reminder that not all connections had to be complicated. One evening, as Cassie closed up the studio after class, she paused at her wheel. She pressed her hands into a fresh mound of clay, feeling its cool promise. The wheel spun, steady and sure, and Cassie smiled at the familiar sensation, the gentle resistance, the possibility in every turn. She thought of Derek sometimes, but the memories no longer stung. He was a chapter she'd finished, a lesson she'd learned. She wished him well, but she no longer carried his weight. Cassie's life wasn't perfect. There were still days when the clay collapsed, when loneliness crept in, when doubts whispered at the edges. But she faced them with the same courage she'd found in the darkest moments, shaping, reshaping, starting over as many times as it took. As the sun dipped below the city skyline, Cassie lifted her hands from the wheel and admired her work. The bowl wasn't flawless, but it was hers, unique, resilient, and full of story. She cleaned her hands, locked the studio, and stepped out into the evening, the world wide open before her. The wheel keeps turning, Cassie thought, and so do I. And with that, she walked forward into the night, into her future, into a life she'd finally claimed as her own. Letter to my future self. Dear future Cassie, if you're reading this, I hope you're somewhere with clay under your fingernails and laughter in your heart. I hope you're still making things, bowls, mugs, memories, mistakes. I hope you're still learning, still loving, still letting yourself be gloriously, unapologetically imperfect. Remember the nights you thought you'd never get here? The heartbreak, the betrayal, the endless questions of why me and what now? Remember how small you felt, how lost. I hope you also remember how you kept going anyway, how you found your way back to yourself, one messy step at a time. If you ever start to doubt again, if the world feels heavy or your hands feel clumsy, I want you to remember this. You are not defined by who hurt you or who left or who failed to see your worth. You are defined by what you create, by the kindness you show, by the courage it takes to begin again. Forgive yourself for the times you stayed too long, for the love you gave that wasn't returned, for the trust that was broken. Those were lessons, not failures. They shaped you, but they do not own you. Keep choosing yourself, even when it's hard. Keep reaching for new dreams, even when you're scared. Keep making art, even when it's lopsided, especially then. And if you ever find yourself at a crossroads, unsure of which way to go, remember the feeling of your hands in the clay, the wheels spinning beneath you, the quiet certainty that you can always start over. You are enough. You are more than enough. With love and pride. Cassie, please like and subscribe to support me. I've been deeply affected by infidelity, and your support means the world to me. Watch Exposed and Broken to help me rebuild my life, maybe even buy a house one day.